well, let's take a day to you this day of your time. How are you all? Yeah. I will take that as okay. We thank you, each and every one of you individually, all of you together collectively, for the co-creation of this interaction. Once again, each and every time your civilization interacts with our civilization in this way, it creates a link, a bridge, and a third reality in which we can, one day, interact more and more closely, more and more immediately. So we thank you for the co-creation of this new paradigm, this new reality in which we can all together learn to play. This day of your time, this transmission will begin with a discussion of imagination. Now, we have talked about imagination many times. We would like to take the concept a little bit further this day of your time. We have reminded you of the synchronicity in many of the words that exist in various languages on your planet. We understand the channel's language is English, and in this context, we point out again, as many of you are already familiar with, the synchronicity of the word imagination. Magi, nation. A nation of magicians is what you are. And you can use your imagination to create the kind of nation, the kind of world that you prefer. Imagination is an extremely powerful tool, and we will discuss in what ways this is so, and how you can apply your imagination in very powerful ways to allow and to create the kinds of changes that you would prefer to represent within your lives, individually, and again, within your lives, collectively, globally. And as you thus then move out into the cosmos, into the stars, and join with us eventually, you will find imagination is going to play a very key role in your ability to do that. So let us begin. We will remind you, first of all, that we have talked about the idea that imagination is the conduit between your higher mind and your physical mind. It is the pipeline through which your higher mind communicates with you, and through which, in receiving that communication, you can then, as physical beings, as physical personalities, apply the information, the imagination that comes from higher mind, the communication, into your physical lives, to alter them, to change them in ways that are more reflective of your passion, your excitement, your joy, your preference, or not. It is up to you to use this positively or negatively. It is up to you. But imagination is the key to allow an alignment to occur. And if you are willing to use your imagination without filtering the communication from your higher mind through belief systems that contain fear, then you will find that the outcome can always be a positive one, and you can always amplify and magnify that in any direction, in any area of your lives whatsoever, no matter what. Higher mind, again, I remind you, has the far-seeing point of view. It stands on the mountaintop. It can see all the pathways you could possibly take in life, and it guides you toward the path of least resistance, the path that is most truly you. As we have said many times, the vibration of excitement, the vibration of passion is what functions like the compass needle. It is your magnetic north to your true self. By following your passion, by following your excitement, by pointing the needle in that direction and that direction only, you will always be completely, purely, squarely on the path that is most truly you, your core, true, natural self. Your imagination is the conduit through which your higher mind can guide you in this very easily, if you allow it to be effortless, which you can. Physical mind, then, chooses in physical reality various ideas of how to apply these ideas coming from the higher mind in ways that are also pleasing to the physical being that you are, the physical personality that you are, and you learn to work in concert as a whole being, as a whole person with the higher mind. For if the physical mind thinks that it must take on the job of figuring everything out, how is this going to happen? How can I make this happen? How can I bring everything together to get this to happen? If the physical mind thinks that it must be the only one doing that job, it is going to be burdened, it is going to be weighed down, it is going to be tired. Because the physical mind is not designed to know how things will happen. The physical mind is only designed to know how things have happened. The idea is thus then to trust the higher mind to let you know that if the higher mind is sending you information that pushes you in the direction of your passion and you trust that, what the higher mind is telling you is that by following your passion, the how will be taken care of, because the higher mind can see how you're going to get there, and the translation of that how through the imagination is the physical sensation of excitement, joy, passion, and love. That's how the higher mind speaks to the physical mind through the conduit of imagination, with those feelings, those vibrations, those energies, those pictures. So the physical mind can learn to relax and not feel it has to carry all the weight of the world on its shoulders for figuring out exactly how everything's going to come into manifestation in its life. You can allow the higher mind to guide you in that, and you can relax and ride the wave of the energy that the higher mind sends through the imagination and allow things to unfold in a synchronous manner, in an effortless, joyful, creative, loving manner. And thus then find yourself flowing through life. And even if the path that it leads you down may seem to be going left, going right, going here, going there, going where you least expected it to go, that is cause for celebration. Because as we say in our world, anytime something unexpected comes up, you want to say congratulations. Now you know you're really following your joy and allowing your life to unfold synchronously in front of you without it being so planned out, so rigidized, so insisting that it must be one way or another. Because if you really are open to the idea of what your higher mind can do through your imagination, it will almost always bring you something that is even more exciting than the physical mind was capable of actually picturing. So when you insist that it must be a certain way, you're actually limiting the ways in which it could actually come to you that might even be more exciting than you are actually capable of imagining. But imagination can act as the guide, the initial visualization mechanism to at least give you a bearing, give you a heading. And you can use that picture as a symbol to represent the energy, to symbolize the energy of the reality that is representative of your highest joy, of who you wish to be. But if you rigidize that picture and insist that it must turn out that way, then you're actually fighting against the flow of your higher mind. If you relax that it could come to you in another way and that what you're picturing is just a representation of that reality, then the energy can flow and you may find yourself winding up in a situation that is even more wildly fantastic than you were at first capable of picturing. Now, here is something else that is very important to understand about what imagination is. First of all, of course, understand it is a state of being. And any state of being causes certain kinds of states to exist in the neurology of your brain. When you are in an imaginative, creative state, your brain, the neurology, the way the electrical pathways flow will be different than any other state. Here is something that is important to understand. When you are born in physical reality, The first moment that you crystallize, shall we say, your spirit into the physical matrix, it crystallizes a kind of pattern within you that represents the idea of your soul agreement, your relationship to your higher self at that moment. What happens to it from there on will depend upon a lot of things, including input from your parents, society, so on and so forth. But that core agreement, that core relationship will always exist. So when you go through life, and you've lived several years, and maybe you find yourself becoming in your older age a little bit confused, a little bit forgetful of where you're going, why you came here, so on and so forth, looking for your joy, looking for your passion. Going into the state where you allow yourself to communicate with higher mind through your imagination will actually always bring you back to your 0 moment agreement of when you were born. It will actually restructure the neurological pathways of the brain back to that childlike moment where anything is possible. That's what's key to understand about the function of imagination in your physical reality. It's your reset button. So when you find yourself feeling lost, feeling confused, feeling at odds, go into your imagination. Open up the conduit of communion between your physical mind and higher mind and push the reset button. Go back to the 0 point. Let the neurological pathways realign. And then in that state, open up to the infinite possibilities and the choices you have made. And go forward from there afresh, anew, reinvigorated as a new persona. Because again, remember. When you make any change, you have made a total change. And that is what imagination allows you to do. Realign yourself in such a way in bringing yourself back to a kind of 0 point that you can then step out from there on any path you really so desire that is representative of your highest passion. And know that when you do so, you really have cleaned the slate. And anything that may have seemed to be an issue that was an obstacle or a complication in your life formerly, at that moment of zeroing yourself out, is actually no longer there. Now, you can co-create it again. You can say, oh, it's still there. I still have to get over this. I still have to deal with this. You can do that. If that's your process, that's fine. I am not telling you how to live your life. If you want to include complications and misery in your life, please go ahead. I will not stop you, because if that's what gives you, quote-unquote, joy, then by all means go ahead and involve yourself in that idea of struggle. If that's your process, love it. And then you'll get the most out of it. What I am simply saying is you do not have to do that. You actually have a choice. And in that moment that you zero yourself out with your imagination and allow your neurology to realign, recrystallize back to that first moment, that first agreement, when you were a child, a newborn child, and step forward in that state of being, then all bets are off, as you say. You really have lost your history. You really only live in the present in that moment. And what you do from that moment forward is up to you. And it can be your reality completely, wholly, totally. Now, we have talked about the idea of imagination in context to the concept of all that is. The universe, if you will, the multiverse, creation in totality. Whatever you wish to label it, it doesn't matter. And then we spoke about the idea of understanding this. You cannot imagine non-existence. Go ahead, I'll give you a minute, try it out. There, you see? Couldn't do it. Because the point is that even if you could, by definition, imagining non-existence would be non-experiential. Therefore, how would you know you had done it? You would have no experience of it.
And in having no experience of it, in that context, it isn't relevant. It doesn't exist. Therefore, conversely, anything, everything that you can imagine is somewhere, somewhen, somehow a reality, a real reality. It may not necessarily be relevant to the reality you are creating on Earth, but it is nevertheless real in some parallel dimension, some other reality, whatever you wish to label it. Whatever you imagine is also happening simultaneously with the reality that you are actually physically experiencing. So if in your imagination you do imagine you have 3 arms, wings, 4 eyes, and are purple, there is a reality where such a being, such a version of your soul actually does exist. It may not ever cross paths with you on Earth. You may never know that until you go to higher planes where you can see more of your soul's creation, and then you will go, oh yeah, there I am. Doing that thing in that universe with that kind of a form for that kind of a reason, because that's a symbol and a reflection of that kind of path and that kind of an experience. So anything you imagine is, in fact, tapping into some other simultaneously coexistent real reality. Yes, really, really real. Just as real as you feel your physical reality is for you. Now, the idea, of course, is one of discernment. It is real, but is it relevant to your reality? The idea of following your joy, following your passion, it's not to say you cannot create that here, but it is highly improbable, not impossible, but highly improbable based on the agreement you made to participate in the co-created mass consensus reality of Earth at this point in space-time, as you have created it. Strange things can happen on your planet, and strange things have and always will. And some of them are the confluence of someone actually fully letting go of any assumptions and expectations about what this reality has to be, opening the door a little wider than normal, and perhaps suddenly, there you go, something pops in that may not normally be relevant to your reality, and suddenly a legend is born, a myth is born. Oh, did you know there was such a creature, such a thing, such a happening? Well, those things do happen. They may pop in, they may pop out, and never be seen again. That doesn't mean they weren't real at that moment. It may have simply been only, in a sense, I'll put it this way, a momentary defocusing, a momentary relaxing of your agreement, but it also may be part of your agreement in the sense of presenting those kinds of ideas and realities to yourself so that you can play off them, reflect off them, and see how it might apply to some aspect of your agreement here in this reality. Nothing happens by accident. It can all be played off of. It's all an orchestration. All we are simply saying is, it's also a matter of discernment as to what works for you. And if you use your imagination in this way and apply these things in a manner that will work for you based on your understanding of your true self and the agreement that you made to be your true self in this particular modality, in this particular reality, then you can stay aligned and harmonious with your higher self and understand what it is you can achieve in this reality. You have far fewer limitations in this reality than you think, even within the parameters of the limitations you have imposed upon yourself for what is possible in this reality, or at least what is probable. The idea is that anything that represents your true joy, anything that represents your true self, your true passion, is manifestable. Is manifestable. But it is also about you paying attention to what is actually representative of your passion and not representative of your anxiety that is simply being called your passion. It requires discernment on your part to know whether you're coming from fear or true joy, and not labeling things that are representative of your fear as excitement when they actually in fact are not, but also vice versa. Not labeling your joy as a fear when it actually is representative of your true path. Because many people on your planet will stay away from the thing that really excites them the most because they have put a label of fear on it or society has taught them to do so. This again is where your imagination can, in a sense, come to the rescue. Go back to your 0 point, press your reset button and go, wait a minute. Who am I at the core? Who do I imagine myself to really be? What kind of person am I passionate about being? What kind of life am I passionate about living? In your imagination, you can see all those things. And that's why I have said many, many times, what's important, whether it becomes literally manifest as you see it in your imagination or not, what's important for communication and harmonization between the physical mind and higher mind is that when you do get a picture in your imagination of who you prefer to be, what you prefer to be doing, where you prefer to be doing it, how you prefer to be doing it, when you see that, all you really have to do is mimic it, mirror it, act it out as best as you can on all levels of your life. All you have to do is be like that person in your mind's eye. Do things the way he or she would do it. And then when you start doing things the way he or she would do it, you will change your vibration to the vibration that is representative of that life. And when you shift your vibration to the representation of that life, you will start to synchronistically have that life. All the things that are representative of what that you would have will come in. So that's how to use your imagination as an actual tool, an actual application tool. The idea being that when you open up to your imagination, you reset yourself, take yourself back to 0. Then you create the picture that is you, that you prefer to be. Then you act like it. You behave like it. And then you have 1, 2, 3, the whole manifestation process right there. 1, 2, 3. Let yourself reset using your imagination. Let yourself create using your imagination. Let yourself act it out using your imagination. And your imagination, thus then used in the 1, 2, 3 way, will allow you to become the magician that you are, and you will become a nation of magi. Do you understand this? All right. Now, we will, as this transmission goes on, of course, investigate some of these concepts a little bit more deeply and a little bit more personally as you engage us in questions and discussions. And just the thing to keep in mind while this is going on is that no matter how physical this interaction seems, it's also all happening in your imagination. Because remember, physical reality isn't by itself real, except the experience of it is. Physical reality and everything you experience in your life is created, whether you know it or not, whether you're conscious of it or not, through what you imagine your reality to be. Your beliefs, obviously, your definitions obviously play a part. Your emotions play a part. Your thoughts play a part. But it is your beliefs, your emotions, and your thoughts that all wrap together into the triangle of your personality prism. And once it locks together in that triangle is the template of the imagination that activates your reality. That's the conduit through which you send those beliefs, definitions, emotions, and thoughts up to the realm of the higher self, where manifestation is immediate and instantaneous, and energy is all pervasive. Then the higher self, the higher mind, sends that thought, reflects it back through the imagination to the physical mind, and gives it to you in terms of the passion of your true self, so that by simply acting on it, by simply following your passion, the higher self lets you know, this is the wish you have sent me, translated into the language of the higher mind. Do it. Act it out. Act it out, and you will be speaking the language of the higher mind. You will be blended and harmonized as the physical mind and a higher mind into one holistic being, one holistic person that can then reflect that relationship into manifestations in an imagination reality that is being created by you. It is just a mirror. That's all it is. It's just reflecting back what you imagine it can be. That's all it is. So, as we said, with that in mind, we would invite you, in whatever way, shape, or form you imagine you would like to do it, to share with your questions or statements.
A real say good day to you this day of your time. How are you all? All right, now, first and foremost, allow us once again to thank each and every one of you, and all of you together collectively, for the co-creation of this interaction. Once again, each and every time you are willing to co-create these interactions with us, it forms a bridge, a link, and a connection between our reality and yours, so that we can, together, more and more every day in every way, create a third new reality in which we can both interact in new ways. So we thank you for the gift that you have given to us of sharing. We would like to begin this idea, this transmission, this night of your time, by discussing something that we have labeled debunking the debunkers, talking about the gullible, the skeptical, the cynical. The idea has been expressed many times on your planet that there are unusual phenomenology that occur from time to time, that many individuals on your planet either do believe or do not believe are occurring. Obviously, there are certain things that are perhaps misinterpretations of certain things. This can happen, obviously. Not every single thing that someone may think is a certain thing is a certain thing. Nevertheless, the idea of finding balance within your investigations and your relation to the idea of unusual phenomenon in your world is one that requires a clear, concise approach to remain in balance. And the idea is that what you call being skeptical is in and of itself a natural, healthy point of view, especially for your world, where there are so many deceptions that may occur on your planet, so many different agendas that may occur, and that individuals may wish to take advantage of others. Therefore, remaining skeptical can, in your world, be a healthy thing to do. However, the idea is that skepticism, by definition, is an open-minded state of a willingness to explore something, a willingness to look at what you call evidence, a willingness to understand your relationship to it, your personal relationship to it, and a willingness to allow for a new belief to come in, to challenge the old belief you may have been holding on to. Not the idea that you must change your belief, but a willingness to allow for the possibility that your beliefs, be they long held or cherished, may nevertheless require some change. The idea, of course, is that on polar opposite sides of the balance point of skepticism are the issues of gullibility and cynicism. We have said once before that cynicism, the formula for cynicism is CIA. Cynicism equals ignorance plus arrogance. Now, the understanding is that, unlike the idea of open-minded skepticism, where you are willing to investigate, willing to take in new information, open to the possibility of changing your point of view, cynicism is that which has its mind made up, has a belief system and an agenda totally intact, and is unwilling to change. The idea being, therefore, that cynicism dismisses any new ideas that may challenge the paradigm that exists within. Gullibility, for most of you, means being open to accepting just about anything without any kind of filtration system, without any kind of discernment. The idea, however, is to recognize a fascinating fact about the polar opposites of gullibility and cynicism. They are not polar opposites. They are different versions of the same thing.
Gullibility also has cynicism within it. Cynicism also contains a great degree of gullibility. Allow us to explain. The fundamental similarity between gullibility and cynicism is the same issue. I believe what I believe, and nothing will change that despite any evidence to the contrary. The gullible, in accepting everything without any kind of discernment, are actually saying the same thing. I have a belief system that I do not want to change no matter what. It's the same thing that the cynics say. I have a belief system I do not want to change no matter what. The gullibility inherent in cynicism is this. When a cynic often looks at the so-called are actually investigating the true evidence, the true story, may simply be gullibly accepting the folk tale and using that and dismissing that as if they are dismissing true scientific evidence, when in fact all they're doing is saying the folk tale may not be actually representative of what's actually going on, and therefore because the folk tale is not true, the reality must also not exist. And so by saying that, by approaching it that way, the cynic has actually gullibly swallowed the general folk tale that has been put forth by individuals who may in fact be gullible. So in that sense, the gullible and the cynical have a connected relationship, a marriage of sorts, and they feed off each other, all pushing away from each other in that sense, leaving the idea of skepticism in the center. So all we are basically suggesting here is that you, in your investigation of anything that you may hear that seems unusual in your world, allow yourselves to remain in the center, in balance with your investigation as to whether or not it means something to you, whether or not it ought to be incorporated into your belief system structure, whether or not it really serves you in a positive, beneficial way, and allow yourself to maintain a sense of discernment as to what is and what is not appropriate for you. Now, of course, we understand there are many different points of view, many different belief systems, and for each and every individual, whatever belief system they are holding to be true for themselves at any given moment is true for them at that moment, even if it seems contradictory to another. But the only reason we are discussing the issues of gullibility and cynicism in this context is because very often the idea of those who are gullible and accept everything and those who are cynical and accept nothing often attempt to push that point of view on others. So if you are going to have a particular point of view that you believe is contradictory to anyone else's point of view, by all means, you are entitled to create that for yourself. But understand, you are not entitled to create that for anyone else. The idea is that each and every single one of you have the power, have the given gift to decide what is true for you, but do not have the ability to decide what is true for anyone else. Therefore, in the idea of accepting what is true for you as being all well and good, the idea, therefore, of communicating it to another is where the idea of balanced skepticism comes into play, in that when you transmit information that you may feel is true for you and would never likely change, the idea of sharing that to be balanced always comes with the allowance that whoever you are sharing that point of view with does not in any way, shape, or form need to believe you. And that's not what it's about. Sharing the idea of a point of view is an opportunity to give someone an option to consider another idea, another belief, another point of view. But it is only an option. It is only a sharing. It is only an opportunity to decide for themselves whether your point of view works for them, whether it's something they can form a consensus agreement upon. But no one really needs to do that. In fact, as we have stressed several times, none of you even need to believe anything we have just said. This is our point of view. This is our perspective. This is our understanding from our civilization based on our experience, our evolution, and what works for us. Now, yes, it is true. There are some general consensus ideas and beliefs that are common to almost everyone on your planet. These are the things you have already created a consensus agreement about that are put on, shall we say, automatic pilot, so you don't have to really think about them day to day. You can get on about the business of simply living your life without having to think about the idea of whether gravity is suddenly going to cancel on you. That's a consensus agreement that there is such a thing as gravity. Nevertheless, obviously, in this day and age of exploring consciousness and beginning to realize that physical reality is only an illusion and that you create whatever you are experiencing it to be, many individuals are beginning to explore and examine the possibility that gravity may not necessarily be such a given. That solidity may not necessarily be so solid. That things are malleable, that space-time can be flexible, stretched, bent, altered, and experienced in a new way. And the more you allow your vibrations to focus on these things, the more you will synchronistically experience the results of that point of view, of course. Because this is the general consensus you have all agreed to explore, especially in this lifetime. The idea of the expansion of consciousness, which then brings the realization that physical reality is nothing but your game, your creation, your illusion, your experience. Physical reality itself, as we have said several times, is not unto itself a real, solid thing outside you. The experience of physical reality is real, but not the physical reality itself. It's just a mirror. Nevertheless, you have, to a great degree, created some consensus reality. But as that changes for several individuals, as there is created new points of view, and as there is consensus even among small groups about different points of view from the general consensus, new bubble realities are thus then created within the overall consensus agreement. As time goes on, as you proceed in your investigation of things that have historically been considered unusual, unbelievable, unreal, and start to find out that many of them in fact are real, are very believable, are in fact extremely experienceable by each and every one of you, you will thus then imbue the general consensus reality with more and more vibrations that are representative of more people's ability to see some of those unusual things actually come to pass, come to fruition, become more concrete, more stable, more experiential. That will happen over the course of time as you create time to exist. But nevertheless, in this transitional timing that's going on now on your planet, when each and every one of you are really busy about the experience of deciding what is true for you and what kind of a reality you really wish to experience your life to be, as you redefine yourselves, find out what you have been labeling things as, and change those labels to suit the idea of your true, natural, joyful selves, which is available to you all without exception. As you go through this process, all that we are suggesting to you that has worked for us is that you allow yourself to be open to the possibility that as you adopt new beliefs, that those beliefs in and of themselves are no more capable of becoming concrete than you wish them to be, and that they themselves are always open to change as you gain new understanding and new perspectives of yourself as an aspect of creation. So, if you wish to experience the idea of gullibility and accept everything, as you say, willy-nilly, that's your choice. But it will allow you to take a longer time to create for yourself the ability to discern what actually works best for you and what does not. If you wish to create the idea of a cynical point of view, be our guest. You are entitled to create that if you wish. But again, from our experience, we simply caution you that it will allow you to create more time in which to create the reality of your preference. Only the balance point is the thing from our experience that allows you to create the reality you prefer in an ever-flexible, ever-changing, rapidly accelerating manner. So it's up to you to decide what you prefer. Doing it slowly, doing it quickly, doing it in between at a pace that is comfortable for you. It's up to you. But recognize simply that all of it is your creation. All of it. And that every point of view is valid, but there are always consequences to the choices you make, mechanically speaking. Of course, many of you understand that when we say consequences, we are not discussing the issue of punishment or anything like the idea of negative judgment. We are simply talking physics, mechanically. There is always a reaction to every action. And therefore, it's about gaining more discernment about what the consequences are mechanically for every action that you take, for every stance that you take, for every state of being you choose to be in. The idea, therefore, is to allow yourselves to recognize that you can make choices that will determine what kind of experience you have. And if you are not enjoying the experience you are having, you can allow that to change by making different choices. It's really as simple as that. I know that for many of you it doesn't seem to be that easy because you have a difficult time figuring out how to get in touch with what choices you're already making that are creating the experiences you say you don't want. But nevertheless, it's actually a relatively simple thing to do. All you have to do is get in touch with the thing that you are using to define, the label you are using to define any particular experience that you are having. And once you get a handle, as you say, once you make transparent the label you have been using, whether consciously or unconsciously, to define the reality that you are experiencing, it will become clear why you have been experiencing the things that you have. Because as you label a thing, so thus then does the consequence issue therefrom and give you that experience. What you put out is what you get back, as we have said many times and call the third law of creation. Therefore, balance is the key, literally, that will unlock all perspectives to you and give you the discernment to decide. Even if it's through the auspices of figuring out what you are not, to decide what it is you truly prefer to be. Many people on your planet will take that route. They will explore many things. They will find that it will allow certain kinds of negative experiences to happen in their lives, but that may simply be their way of exploring what they are not to more clearly define what they are. And when you choose to go from the darkness to the light, in that sense, when you choose to balance yourself out, then by having gone into the darkness to define what you are not, it may be that much simpler for you to define what you are and that much easier to go into the light and create realities of your preferential choice that are in alignment with your true core self. Is this making some sense to you?
Yes.
All right. So, the idea, therefore, to simply sum up the issue of debunking the debunkers is to pay attention to the fact that when individuals seek to debunk, they are often themselves simply afraid to look at new ideas, new things. When an individual is also gullible enough to accept everything without discernment, it is also the same issue. They are afraid to see something else that they think will be something unacceptable, something distasteful, something to be feared. You may have that experience, but none of it is empirically true. There is nothing to fear in anything that you will discover. Every single thing you will investigate, every single thing, the deepest fear, the greatest joy, every single thing that you will investigate, you will always, I guarantee you, discover simply more of yourself, more of your true core being, because that's all there is to discover. However, as we said, you do not need to take our word for it. We know it works from our experience, and many of you know it works from your experience. All of you have the ability to experience it for yourselves, and we will leave it up to you to choose to do so if you wish.
Let me say good day to you this day of your time, and how are you all? All right. We thank you once again for allowing this communication, this transmission to occur in this manner, through this window, at this time, in this way. Once again, each and every time, you allow our civilization to interact with your civilization in this manner. It affords our world an opportunity to see through each and every one of your eyes a new way, a different way, an additional way that the universe has of expressing itself, and this expands our understanding of creation as well. So we thank you for this gift of sharing. We would like to begin this transmission, this day of your time, with a light subject that we will call denial, separation, and projection. Now, the idea is to understand that negative belief systems, that is, belief systems that may be incorporated into your personality, into your consciousness, that are, shall we say, against the grain of your true self, out of alignment with your true self, out of alignment with your joy, out of alignment with your love, in alignment with your fear, belief systems of that nature, for lack of a better term, let's term them negative, mechanically, because negative energy separates, segregates, compartmentalizes, as opposed to positive energy, which integrates and makes whole. That is the mechanical definition, positive and negative energy. Belief systems, then, that your personality may have been fed since childhood, that may still be with you in your consciousness, may allow you then to experience the idea of fear. And in experiencing the idea of fear, it brings with it many times an inability to recognize what is going on in your consciousness. It has, in a sense, separated you from awareness of yourself. And thus then, when you encounter circumstances and situations in life that may interact with those belief systems, or more euphemistically, as you put it in your language, that push your buttons, you then may find yourself, rather than being aware of what the belief is that is causing the reaction within you that is negative, you may simply go into the idea called denial, which is simply lack of awareness of yourself. And you may then, because you are compounding the negative energy, go into further negative energy, which would be separation. And in the energy of denial, and in the energy of separation, because it is separate from yourself, or seems to be, you will then project the idea of the causation of this feeling outward, beyond yourself, not in yourself. You will project onto others, blame other situations for what you are experiencing, rather than accepting the responsibility for the feeling, for the experience, based on the belief systems going on within you. Now, this does not mean that you cannot recognize and cannot acknowledge when someone else might in fact be acting out of integrity, might in fact be negatively attacking you, or doing something hurtful intentionally. This does not mean you cannot recognize what their actions are based on. But, depending upon the clarity that you have within your own consciousness, depending upon the level of awareness you have about what belief systems you yourself have bought into, you can, regardless of anyone else's intention, you can utterly determine the effect you experience in your life. You do not have to react to any given situation or circumstance in any particular way. You can decide how you will use the information, how will you use the idea in your lives, how you will integrate the information. You can decide to experience it in a positive way, to get a positive effect out of it, regardless of what they may have intended, consciously or unconsciously. All you have to do, first of all, is recognize that if you do start to react and attack back, that is simply the mechanism of separation, of projection, based on denial or lack of awareness of the negative belief systems that you may have bought into that are perched within your unconscious self. All you have to do is get in touch with what those negative definitions, those fear definitions, might be. The idea, thus, then, is that this concept, this three-part concept, denial, separation, projection, is another tool that you can use to give yourself a moment of pause in any circumstance and to be more consciously aware of what the choices are for you in terms of how you will interact and how you will respond rather than react to any given circumstance, and thus allow your life, your energy, your experience of the interaction, of the event, of the exchange, to be one that works for you in a positive way, again, regardless of what anyone else's intention, consciously or unconsciously, might have been. Because the choice and the power and the control, in that sense, is always in your hands. And reactions are usually, in the negative sense, only based on the fact that you have incorporated within you belief systems that are out of alignment with your truth, your joy, your love, and are in alignment with your fear, your doubt. And remember, fear is your own energy. What you experience as the sensation of fear is your own energy. And it is exactly the same energy as the energy you experience when you experience love and joy. It is exactly the same energy, but it is a different frequency of that energy. Why is it a different frequency? Because when you flow or channel your energy through your personality, through your consciousness, and your consciousness has a negative belief system within it that it's out of alignment with your truth, that energy will be experienced as the sensation you call fear. When you experience your energy or channel your energy through positive belief systems, you will experience the same energy as the frequency of joy and love. But this is also a very powerful tool because it can help put you in touch with where you're at, what kind of belief systems you have. Because if you find yourself experiencing fear, that can tell you you have a belief system that needs looking at, that needs clarifying. We have many times, and many of you have heard this, use the analogy of the instrument on your planet you call the piano. If you are playing a wonderful song that you love, and all of a sudden you hit a flat note, a sour note, you do not run away from the piano screaming, vowing never to play it again, usually. You will simply say to yourself, that key needs to be tuned, to be brought back into harmony with the rest of the keys. That's what fear is. It's simply a flat key. It is simply letting you know you have a belief system that your energy is channeling through that results in this frequency. If you want to bring that key back into harmony with the rest of your beliefs, then use it to find out what kind of a belief system you would have to believe, what kind of idea you would have to buy into, what kind of perspective you would have to hold to be true in order to experience that kind of a reaction. Once you use your fear in that way, it will automatically transform, more or less quickly, into curiosity and imagination. And you will be able to use that energy to delve into yourself and find out what that belief system is, and then change it into a definition you prefer, which then, by doing, will automatically replace the old one. Why? Because you said so, that's why. No more complicated than that. No extra process needed, unless you insist on one, but that's your choice. But when you replace it, when you invent, when you imagine a new definition, and you believe in it wholeheartedly, and you act like you believe in it wholeheartedly, then your life will reflect that belief to you, and you will see the fear transform, and you will see the reality transform. But again, I remind you, as I always will when this point comes up, it must be an unconditional change. You must change the belief because that's who you say you are, not because of what you think it will get you. Yes, I will be happy if this happens. I will be happy when this happens. Yes, I will change my belief because I know it will change my reality to look like this or look like that. That's conditional. It needs to be unconditional, which means you need to change the belief and live in the state you prefer to live just because that's who you say you are, even if nothing else were to change. You see, the mark, the measure, the symbol of whether or not you have really, really changed is that you start to respond differently, more positively to what's going on outside around you, even if what's going on outside around you stays the same. It is not the mark of change that your outside world changes. It will, but only after you don't care if it does. That's the paradox. You have to change for change's sake, for your own sake, because the change is representative of simply who you are, and that's it. Not because of what you think it will do, or who you think it will change, or what you think it will get you. That's conditional, and this whole idea is about unconditional love, first of yourself, because if you don't love yourself unconditionally, you can't love anyone else really. and then the outward expression of that unconditional love toward your life, toward everyone in your life, toward everything and everyone and all that is. This idea also goes hand in hand with a side concept we would like to address that we would like to call ground floor spirituality. The idea is to keep your spirituality simple, obvious, evident, plain, everyday, immediate, here and now. Not allowed to get too lofty in the sense of moving away from physical reality. As you simply live your physical life to the fullest and be who you are as best as you can be, you will become, in a sense, more aligned with your spiritual side. You will elevate your vibration, your frequency. It's not about detaching from physical reality. It's about incorporating and integrating spirituality and physicality into one, all-embracing life, embracing action, being, doing, saying. An example. There is, in the structure that you are all now sitting near, what you call the building, in what you call one of the upstairs bathrooms, there are 3 signs. One sign says, the greatest thing is to learn to know oneself. The other sign says, a prayer for serenity, asking for serenity to know what you need to accept, courage to change things that can be changed, wisdom to know the difference. Most of you are familiar with that. But the third sign says, put only toilet paper in the toilet. This is the essence of ground floor spirituality. That which belongs to that which belongs. That which is correct for that which is correct and appropriate. To a Zen master, the third sign would be the most spiritual sign. The adherence to the third sign automatically and instinctively, for example, would be a sign that the other 2 signs had already been fulfilled. Because you automatically simply would know what belongs where, without having to be told. You get the point? All right. Now then, we will take this opportunity once again to thank each and every one of you for allowing this exchange to take place. And once again, in return for the gift that you are giving to our society, I ask in what way may I now be of service to you. You, good day.